All right, well, without any further ado, our program for the evening. Now, normally I would turn this over to somebody to introduce our speaker, but the speaker's me. So you're gonna have to bear with me for about 40 minutes here while we dig into this. Okay. This is, I mean, to me, a little bit, this became a little bit of a passion project. And I think it's kind of an interesting study and something that's sort of forgotten. And I think that's really how I'm going to treat this program tonight, as a study in and of itself. I don't know what we're going to get out of this from a big picture, change your life kind of thing, but I think it's something that we should look into more as a group. So the Better Homes and Gardens Idea Home of the Year, the Forgotten Case Study House program. Of course, we're all familiar with Arts and Architecture's case study program. This is the real one, right? This is the one you talk about. This is for architects, right? John and Tenza that bought this magazine, Arts and Architecture, in the early 40s. Really became a passion project for him. He paid for this deal out of his own pocket. It really wasn't, it doesn't have a lot of ads in it, so it didn't make money. This was about furthering the cause, right? Making great modern architecture and publishing this stuff. And pretty early on, he started to work with some really incredible folks. That's John and Tenza there with Ray and Charles Eames. And his idea was, God, let's start to, if you guys have a really great commission, I'll pay for half of your fee if your client agrees to let me publish this and allow it to be open to the public for, I think it was 6 months or something like that. And the result was pretty spectacular. This idea of affordability and mass production. How can we really push things forward? And he was able to show this to a pretty big audience, but really it was a bunch of architects, right? But lots of incredible buildings, Koenig, Richard Neutra, Marcel Breuer, all kinds of folks involved with this. Big deal. Beautiful stuff. Sarnac here. And, the idea, this sort of mission statement for them was to create things that were, for the most part, relatively attainable or affordable. Near the end of the program, that maybe got a little bit stretched. The Eames house, of course. So some really, really great stuff, things that you think of as great pieces of modern architecture. Of course, there were a lot of other programs going on at the time. Magazines were sponsoring homes themselves. This is actually a good example. The Revere Quality House Exhibition. Notice this address here, 2900 South Marion, Arapahoe Acres, Gene Sternberg. That's the show home for Arapahoe Acres. That was the first house. This was sponsored by Revere Ware, right? Those copper pots and pans. So lots of folks were getting in on this idea, capitalizing, promoting different buildings and different sort of case study programs. So while Intenza was the one that architects are most familiar with, the public at that point in time was seeing an awful lot of modern architecture from an awful lot of places, and really from folks that you wouldn't expect were taking up this cause. Alcoa. I'm familiar with this because my grandfather actually worked on this program. Alcoa Aluminum out of Pittsburgh was one of his clients. The Alcoa Carefree Home. Here is your dream house made real, right? incredible building. And again, a program sponsored by Alcoa Aluminum. Sort of interesting buildings, kind of conventionally built, really, but exploring products that Alcoa Aluminum was creating, right? Anodized metal panel, or aluminum panels, aluminum sliding glass doors, all this kind of thing. So pretty neat. And there's actually a number of these across the country. The Alcoa program, there's actually one here in Denver. I don't believe it's still purple anymore. Westinghouse went gangbusters. Another client my grandfather was involved with. And Westinghouse, this is sort of timely as we talk about all of these cities promoting going electric and getting away from gas and all this stuff. This was part of Westinghouse's program, right? The all-electric home. Stage set here, but they did build a series of real houses in real cities across the country. But because of Westinghouse's budget, they could provide a series of short films that would be run in theaters. And this is still from one of those films, The Total Electric Home. And of course, all of these companies would fill these buildings with their products. And then this turns into a major marketing campaign, right? So there's our Westinghouse washers and dryer, and this great refrigerator that doubles as a piece of furniture, all this kind of stuff. Pretty fun. And then we get to our topic tonight, the Better Homes and Gardens Idea Home of the Year. Now, why would Better Homes and Gardens start to do this? They're talking with home builders at the time. And in fact, we're already in the beginning of the decade at a plan sale sort of line where you could actually buy plans from their magazine. And it kind of grew from there. They're interesting. And just like Intenza, they got content for their magazine every year by doing this, right? They can stretch this out. What's different about Intenza's program and this one, though, is really the size of it. While Arts and Architecture built one building for a particular client, Better Homes and Gardens built on a mass scale, on average, one home in over 100 cities. And that would be open for 6 to 8 months for the public to tour, while this was being distributed over a series of months, featured in September. So you got to imagine here, while we talk about the Arts and Architecture program often, and it had a serious effect on architects, this had a very serious effect on normal people who read this magazine, right? Buyers, homemakers, yes, looking for a meatloaf recipe. And somewhere in the pages of this magazine are these pretty attainable houses. While Intenza intended these things to be mass-produced stuff he was doing with Arts and Architecture, you could argue that these were a little more friendly. They were a little more builder-friendly, a little more realistic. And while they didn't push the bounds quite as far, it's certainly an attainable modern architecture. And of course, every year, like I say, 100 cities. Well, Denver was growing at an incredible rate this particular time. So Colorado often got 2. Colorado Springs and Denver, specifically Littleton or Englewood. And some pretty interesting things happened. Now, Manning, who was building Arapahoe Acres, and at the time had a relationship with a few of these companies. You saw the Revereware ad for Gene Sternberg's building. So he's looking, of course, he built his house. He's involved with these. So when this program comes to light, jumps on right out of the gate. Now, 1953 is the first year for this. Now, what's also kind of neat about, I think, what we're going to go through tonight, and we're going to go through it the way that it was presented to the public. This is the way that they saw it. If they didn't see the house, it, of course, Better Homes and Gardens, says that however many 100,000 people came through the house this weekend alone. Whether that really happened, I don't know. But because Better Homes and Gardens had a real budget and was really full of ads, they could afford color photography and some serious spreads on these houses. And of course, their market is normal people. So we're going to look at it in a normal way. 1953, this is the house you asked for. Your terrace and garden are the center of summer living and should be shared from indoors. Modern materials are easy on the eyes, easy on the upkeep. Space used only for occasional dining is wasted space. Present cost of building. Design should simply point up the interesting living indoors. Who says that second bathroom is a luxury? It's an absolute necessity for homes with children. Laundry equipped may be handy to kitchen, but not a part of it. These are kind of big statements. This is the house. Pretty neat. This is where it starts off. Sort of a two-part floor plan here. Kind of reminds you of Marcel Breuer's House in the Garden or something.
By nuclear houses.
By nuclear houses, of course, which would have been at the same time. Really sort of an elegant design, as far as it's elevated. But when you look at the planning, it's pretty elegant. Clear separation of a private house, a private pavilion, and a living pavilion, a terrace room in between. Not necessarily what you'd expect. Better Homes and Gardens. This is the floor plan drawn up for folks to look at and understand how the furniture works, things like that. But gosh, what a wonderful environment. And by looking through these, of course, we get great photography that shows it in a light that might be a little different than the architects may look at it. Beautiful and really advanced for 1953. Sliding cupboard doors, of course. I noticed that in this in this photo here, the perforated pegboard is interior surfaces, flexible wall arrangements, and all this kind of stuff. And they talk about it at a high level, not just kind of fluffy. It tells me that there might be somebody behind this. Somebody has a big idea at that magazine. You can actually see 5-star home number 2309 in these cities now. This is a transition period in that first year where they go from the planned sale to the idea home. You can see the number of homes that they actually built. Where are we at? Colorado Springs, right there, Juniper Drive. That's the house today, still there. And it got built out pretty close to what the design called for. 1954, the program starts to solidify here. The home for all America, all America. Doesn't matter if you're building in Florida or Alaska, I guess. Well, I guess not. You can see it in the next 18 pages. Visit it in your area and buy complete plans for this house. Kind of interesting. One house with a variety of different roofs that you can plug onto this to go from something that's maybe a little more contextual. The pitched roof, okay. Gable roof, less glass, traditional materials make this house more familiar. Low pitched roof, medium glass use, timeless materials are perfect in between. And of course, flat roof, big glass areas, appropriate materials give very advanced visibility. Nice plan though. some drawings showing two houses, modern, the flat roof and the pitched roof variation. Different carports happening here to meet the street. Thoughtful design. This is the one, the variation of the roof form that got built the most. It's everything a house should be. Guess that's why it's the home for all America. Living dining areas merged for full use of space. Accordion doors, wonderful arrangement here. Beautiful. Digging into kitchens. How can we make a kitchen work? A ship's galley in plan and efficiency. Right? This is new. Making a space that actually works. This is in the pages of Better Homes and Gardens. Energetic space for people who put a house to active use. Talking about kids here, right? The flexible room for the kids, the activity guest sleeping zone, the bedroom, other little bedrooms, so kids can play here in their own sort of living room. Beautiful colors, right? And of course, their own little play terrace out front. Bedrooms meet the special needs of parents and children. Exploring this ceiling light in the hallways where often we don't have glass. This is an idea that they explore through much of this program's life. Talking about wardrobes. How can we make this work better to be efficient? Right? Part of the goal here is that sort of middle class attainability. The outdoors built into your house, around your family. These great courts, one for the adults, one for the kiddos. Of course, now visit the home for all America. So where are we at? There we go. Colorado Springs, Englewood. These are some ads courtesy of Mr. Stevens. Really incredible ads. Showing these all over the place, right? These are from different places. Of course, the one on the right here, Hawkins Associates, Inc. We know those folks. And there it is, as featured in Empire Magazine. That particular year, a home for 100 cities. I like that cue a little better. The Colorado version of this model, American House, emphasizes informal outdoor living. And that's it today. That's in Arapahoe Acres as it was built. Now, oftentimes, Mannon would change these slightly when he built them here in Colorado. It seems like a lot of the other builders built them as the plans came. The Arapahoe Acres and the Arapahoe Hills houses are kind of tuned up. Really, really beautiful house. I think this was on exhibit several years ago at some function going on in Arapahoe Acres. But like I say, these were built all over the place, right? Boise here. Where's this one? Oh, Ryan invites public to see display home. I used to work for Ryan Homes out of Pittsburgh. That was the Pittsburgh house. Drawing down here. You can imagine that maybe some of these homes didn't live quite the charmed lives that they did in Arapahoe Acres and things like that. But wonderful to see these. Here we are in DC, I think. I think that's what that says is DC. Of course, the steepest pitch back east. But the home for all America, Tampa. Here we go with the low pitch. That house isn't there anymore. I looked up this address. It's gone. It's got a big hip roof McMansion on it from the 90s.
Of course it does, because it's Tampa.
1955. Now, this is where the program starts to really get rolling. The idea home of the year. And this is the nomenclature that they run with for the rest of the program. Pretty neat. Sort of a, I think maybe these are their exterior views of the street side and the more active side of the house behind the courtyard wall, behind this flat top garage. You can see here in the plan. Sort of has a conventional core. Right? 3 bedrooms shown, bathroom. If you choose to build it with the cellar, you've got steps here, but family room, kitchen, and then sort of this more formal living pavilion off of the front. And of course, everything opens up to the terrace, outdoor living room, as they call it. Decorating blends in easy unity with the design of the house. What's probably the most interesting feature of this building is its construction. Most of the ones that were built across the country were typically framed, so studs and things like that, cavities in the walls. This was not the intention of the building. It was supposed to be a mass timber construction, and the article talks pretty heavily about this. Those are actually 2x4s and 2x3s spiked together. So that is a mass timber panel spanning from the outside top plate to the ridge beam. On the interior, the majority of it, you can see it in these pictures, is board and batten and is the exterior siding material coming inside. Talking about the flexibility of living in these homes, dining and active areas, show new ways of living indoors and out. That might be a really simple statement to a lot of us, but to the average American in 1953, really would be quite a statement. Wonderful modern kitchen, laundry separate, flexible family space here for dining and living. There's that lighted ceiling again. Does make some pretty neat lighting condition in that hallway, doesn't it? And they even show us how it works with the fluorescent tubes up above, and of course, just the plastic corrugated drop-in panels happening here. Talking about how to make the most of these small bedrooms, right? Got built-ins happening in here. Painted it brightly, you know, bright, fun colors. Gosh, look at this. There's the boys' room. Even talks about the lack of carpeting in here, so you can mop up when kids spill and make a mess. Right? It's relatable to normal people. This is the master suite, all glass, right? Talking about the innovation of pushing the closet outside of the plan and cantilevering it off of the slab. So you don't waste the space. It's occupying the zone and plan that is the overhang. And here's kind of interesting. Just to prove it can be done handsomely, we've put traditional furnishings in this contemporary room. Furniture shows how older pieces needn't be sacrificed for modern living. So you can live in there even with your old junk. But I think this is kind of the neat thing. The Idea Home of the Year has a remarkably flexible plan. And it shows it being built in stages of affordability, right? The yellow here shown as the initial house, family room and a kitchen, 2 bedrooms and the utility core, and that's the house built. It grows, right? We can add on a second bathroom here. Add on the 3rd bedroom, the back, the house grows a little more. And then of course, you can add on that whole living pavilion if you choose with the garden. So really trying to make this a really affordable, build it yourself kind of kit of parts. I love this. And where are we at? Colorado, Englewood, right? Hawkins Associates. And there it is today. That's the one that got built in Arapahoe Acres. And as far as I can tell, it got built pretty close to the actual plans from the magazine. Other than it wasn't built with mass timber roofs. This seems to be conventionally framed with board and batten just running up and up the ceiling. Same effect though.
The Tampa house is also replaced again, the Clearwater one.
Is
It's
it?
near our Florida place. That's why I looked at that address and I was like, oh, that's familiar. It's also been replaced with another stucco awful.
Of course,
Same.
these are built everywhere, right? Wichita. Imagine the Port Pittsburgh one. Gosh, what happened to that? God only knows. 1956, another great ad over here. I like seeing this, the asphalt tile flooring. Right? Look at this ballerina having a grand time. This black and white checkers. All right, the idea home of the year for 56. About the same kind of scale. But this is it. Steeper pitch. It's built all over the place. Ralph A. Foreigner, Kirkwood, Missouri. That's the architect. Sort of an elegant thing, though. But a steeper pitch, right? So we can put asphalt shingles on this. It's a more cost-effective roof. And overall, kind of has a more maybe familiar, conventional shape. Seems like they're exploring more about kind of spatial or decorating kind of ideas, but you know, we've got collar ties, so it's an open ceiling, but overall, generally much more conventional. Some of the plan stuff is kind of neat. Flexible open dining space with this curtain track happening. Love the use of color. Maybe the use of color is kind of making up for a little bit of a man house. Again, those lighted bedroom ceilings. Here it's shown in the toilet, right in the bathroom. But generally more conventional. There's Daddy in that chair. Look at that junk chair. Of course he has to work on that. Basement is open to breeze, light, and view in that particular case. So we can visit them again, right? There's Colorado Springs, and of course, Denver. This again, though, got built everywhere. I believe this was in Vermont.
What was the Littleton address, Josh?
We're gonna look at it.
Well, no, that's, oh, that. What was it? Oh, yes, it is.
That's the poor Vermont house today. Guess the clear stories didn't make it. But you'd never know what that was now, would you?
No.
And of course, the 1956 house got built in Arapahoe Hills. But Mannon made some changes here. The roof's a lot flatter. He wasn't going to put asphalt shingles in this beautiful Arapahoe Hills. We got to get a gravel roof up there. And that's as it got built. Today it's got a metal roof. And what it looked like brand new out of the box. It's kind of got a little, it looks a little better than the one that we published. The idea home of the year, Littleton area, house filled with things for you. Recreation room ideas, family room ideas, bedroom ideas, outdoor living area ideas, kitchen ideas. And you can go through this home, actually go through it. 100 towns and cities throughout the US. Better Homes and Gardens shows it. 20 pages of pictures. It's decoration. Of course, a great thank you. So a lot of fanfare here. And that would have happened in every one of these cities. I would suspect that they were getting built in. So a lot of people probably were walking these. They certainly were reading about them. 1957, the program's coming along pretty nicely. Great carpet ad here. Again, another one with a steeper pitch. We'll do asphalt shingles. It's a much bigger plan here, but still a nice arrangement. Talking about more of a living pavilion, kind of a sleeping pavilion, an entrance court, sort of elaborate service yard, carport structure, pretty big.
This has got separate living room and family room now.
Mhm.
That's the first time we saw a family room.
The one floor plan you had it, if you added it on, you had the living.
You had the form, yeah.
Yeah, you had two
company
rooms
spot.
if you had added it on the other one.
Something seems a little bloated here, though, than those first few years.
The rooms are getting much bigger.
Yes,
Much bigger.
bathrooms are staying the same.
Yes. Yes, exactly. You know, we're really not exploring anything out of the box here in these interiors, right? It's just all drywall. There's nothing really right about here, other than bright colors and weird furniture, I guess. I don't know. Family room, okay. We kind of beat this dead horse for the last 4 years, but there it is again. By this point in time, I mean, a lot of homes are already being built with family rooms. Is this really that advanced anymore? They're nice spaces, well planned, but I don't know if it's really pushing the bounds like it was those first couple of years. Outdoor planting, right? We're seeing less language in these write-ups talking about the architecture. They're talking about planting schemes and things. Something's getting lost. Still an elegant building, where you can see the idea home all over the place. Of course, there we are. Colorado Springs is dropped though. And that's the building today. It looks a little bit different than the one that was built, right? So when we were building them here, we're building them a little bit different. The flatter roof, I gotta admit, you know, of course it had a gravel roof and stuff on it. But the building is a mirrored plan with the carport being completely different than what came out of the box. I would like to see it a little bit better behind all those trees. But there it was. I believe that's in Georgia. Built like the magazine shows it. There's the little house today. Same one. Pitched roof on the garage, of course now. I wonder if this photograph was from the one in Georgia, or if that was the one that the magazine sent them. Because that looks like that was built. So 1958. Okay, so we're seeing a little bit of a change in these projects. This is the cover for the magazine. I included this because I've seen this used. Some contemporary artists are painting these kinds of things today. And I know this has been replicated at least a few times. 6 idea homes of the year, new interior colors, food with fall flavor. What does a woman do all day?
So I have a funny story about this one though. I went to an estate sale. And I walked in Wheat Ridge and I was like, this house is familiar. And I was talking to the son and he's like, yeah, my parents went somewhere in South Denver and looked at this house and they toured it and they decided they wanted to build it. They're like, it's a magazine house. And I was like, Better Homes and Gardens. And so then they had their floor plans in the basement and they had done an expanded version of it and a realtor owns it currently and is supposedly fixing it. But yeah, it was, they talked about they're going to visit and going to
And
see
then
this
built it.
house and then build the house.
Well, that's the other part that there's, I wouldn't be surprised if there's absolutely no way of tracking, right? That had to have happened
A lot.
a lot. So these houses are probably built everywhere and probably subtly changed.
Yeah, that one had a 4th level that the floor plan didn't originally have.
So 6 idea homes here. 6, right? Colorado, of course, being built, Littleton. Colorado Springs is out of the race. This one was not the one that was built here. This was another model, but the more modern one, you know, this is sort of, we're seeing this all over the place, but I guess, you know, the average family is now seeing it, kind of being bombarded by it. Maybe they'll accept it. Elegant plan, I guess. The split level with everything handy to entry, right? the bi-nuclear plan, Marcel Breuer's split level that was in the garden, right? This is stuff that was really advanced in the 40s. It's 1958. This is getting built by kind of production builders all over the place to a certain extent. I love the texture 111 plywood happening on the interior of the building. That's elegant. Kind of a nice plan. But overall, something's changing here.
And this is the one that was built.
This is the one that was built here. And this. I mean,
No, 4 bedrooms.
yeah, we've got a very traditional character, elevational character. Something. Yep, next page, we got the modern one, flat top. That's a pretty nice arrangement here though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really elegant, formal kind of thing, the bedroom wing, living space, indoor and outdoor living room entrance. I wish the photo was taken from, something that I kind of experienced that big wall.
It really is kind of a pair of pavilions there.
Yeah.
Third group size kitchen.
And then this is the next page, traditional face for an up-to-date layout. Tell me, this is the same people beginning of this program. This is to reach the masses now. And what is there to get excited about here? That cigar store Indian next to the thing here? I don't, nothing.
It looks like most of the ranters that I show weekly.
And, okay,
And oven.
yeah, the building of it. Now we got another modern, okay. Some of the rafters are exposed here.
One of this looks like a rehash of 1955.
Exactly. Exactly. But this is the one that we built, right? The Idea Home for 58. This is one in Georgia, Columbus, Georgia, and the ad is from Georgia too. So you can see this one got bricked. It wasn't the vertical siding. And there's the one that got built here. Brand new. Kind of tuned up a little bit. But gosh, look at it. No grass on the lawn yet. Looks like it's just being seeded. And of course, the house really does look like this still today. It's pretty grown in. It's hard to see
It's
from
really
the street.
interesting.
Where is it?
Rubbo Hills.
Rainbow Hills. And of course, the road isn't gravel anymore. 1959. Really 50s looking bathroom. I do like the toilet that they include underneath. Idea Home 4 ways. All right, so 6 was a bit too much. We're just gonna go with 4. One idea stands out though, it says, so I don't know why we're gonna look at the other 3.
Has anyone used a canopy tub? Like the curtains pull around like a
Oh,
canopy
yeah.
bed? Is that what that
That's,
is?
yeah,
Okay. I've
that
just
must
never
be what
seen
it
that.
is.
Yeah, some of the Cinderella tubs do that once in a while where they have a funky curtain rod that goes around it too.
That's so when you're standing there getting a shower, both curtains can stick to you. So these houses are all based on the same plan, and I don't take these perspective illustrations that seriously. I think the scale's blown out. But they're all based on the same plan with different, essentially different elevation characters. But it does talk about sort of this utility and kitchen floor. And then how the other spaces feed off of it. Has 3-bedroom grouping in today's preferred long and low style. It's just like the cars, but there's our little core family, our entry. Again, pretty big loaded house. And not unlike anything that you probably could have just seen your local builders. There's another variation with bedroom wing turned. living spaces, the big massive fireplace in between. It's sort of a nice but conventional elevation, big wide siding on it. Fair amount of glass off the back. And same plan with a traditional exterior, 4 spacious bedrooms inside. So the 4-bed version, same plan. Very traditional, but at the same time, kind of a modern take on kind of a vernacular architecture. And this is an elevational kind of direction that they explore through the end of the program. And there's the more pushed down version of the
That's the
carport.
version that was built here.
And we can see it as it was built. Right? Some nice spaces, of course. Look, Mr. Gass's perforated hardboard soffits happening up here. One of my favorites. But other than that, it's is what it is here. Great use of color. I mean, good God, look at these photos. We've never seen this kind of color anywhere else. And again, it was built all over the place, mostly with the steep pitch roof. But this is the one, as Adam just said, this is ours in Arapahoe Hills. And I believe this was built as a walkout.
Yeah, it was modified to a walkout basement.
1960. Oh, boy.
Oh,
But it's the smartest traditional home ever.
Oh, man.
Ever.
You know, it's very, very traditional. But at the same time, it does have some modern moves in it. You know, it's got a steep pitch. Look at the little wing walls happening here. And the garage set in, the windows pushed into the corners. It's doing some modern things, but I can imagine this being something more contextual with New England or something
Dawn shutters.
With clapboards.
with clapboards. You can see the clapboards come inside in some places. But the rest of it is really rather conventional.
They have a nice drop down light fixture above the dining table. So
But of course,
Pull down.
it's got to look like a little tiny gas lamp or something.
But at least it's modern. They can pull it down, move it.
It goes with your revere wear.
Well,
Yes, Revereware should have got in on this.
I like the Dutch door.
They probably did. This is the other model, that same year, Western Living for the Old Country. And this is the one that got built here. Very nice plan. Sort of a living pavilion off here, and then the rest of the whole house is in the private family zone, with the bedrooms, living space, and the kitchen tucked back in. Very, very nice. And a sort of courtyard atrium happening here at the front door. Now, the version that they publish, this sort of screen thing happening there, I can imagine it being more of a living space. That's the house in the interior. Very nice. Another more contemporary version got built. Really, the thing I like about this picture is that that tree aligns with the column in the carport. So I gotta imagine that when they sited this, they took the map off where that tree was, because that was.
No, that's definitely not painted. So
I
that was
like
better.
it. And a very nice contemporary interior there.
Yeah, I was gonna say the built-in. is nice.
Here, we're starting to hit on a little bit of a budget. The beginnings of this program. Others like it. Nice plan. Clear definition happening in here. A little bit unusual, the kitchen's pushed to the back. A lot of these we see, you come in, the kitchen's off to the left or the right. And it opens off the other direction. watch for opening dates of these idea homes. Watch for opening dates. We didn't hear that kind of copying anywhere else. There we go, Colorado.
So where the address where it is in Tampa, there's actually a lot of really cool mid-century modern homes, so I wonder if it's not a mid-century modern model if you look it up later. That's like Carrollwood has their closest equivalent of like an Arapahoe Acres quality neighborhood.
So this was the house built in Arapahoe Hills. And that's as advertised in the paper. And a few differences were made, just like all the other models that he built. The courtyard in particular is somewhat different, and this funny kind of built-in planter thing that happens on the street.
In my understanding, yeah, I guess that's actually a water feature there.
So rather than this opening up to a, what I would imagine to be like an entrance, living room kind of thing. Privacy from the street with that screen as it was photographed in the magazine. This is a, gotta be a neat experience, crossing this little pond with the arched bridge. That's it, because she was brand new. That's it today.
I was about to say, don't show the current paint job because it's off. But they still have.
The planter is still there,
Paint is just awful.
so it must have worked. I'd be interested to see what the detail of that planter is. And then, of course, the little koi pond or whatever it was at the entry is filled in. The bridge is still in place.
The
though.
bridge is there, but the pond is.
Overall, the house is fairly original.
There was a very original, wonderful kitchen in that house and they took it out.
61. See, we don't know everything. We don't know everything about people, but we try.
All the ladies wear lipstick in order to paint.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, look how much.
And
food
also
she
you're
got.
wearing a very.
So all the guys wear
Because
ties
she's
and
wearing a
everything.
nice,
Yeah,
nice
but-
dress suit, not like
but
your
Tom,
junk clothes for when you
It's
drop.
the
the
newest
pan.
and neatest.
Yeah,
You're not gonna get messed up
Lucite
painting with
wall paint.
lucite paint.
I'd love to know
Look,
what
it doesn't
lucite
even
wall paint.
drip off of the
Look at that.
brush.
Holy cow.
It's serious.
Cleans up just as easy as that.
Distinction at its smartest. Now, this is the model that got built in Arapahoe Hills. Sort of a nice plan, right? Clear, orderly. Living kitchen or living family kind of thing, and then this almost an atrium that runs through the house, and it's actually got a glass light that runs down the whole ridge. I kind of wish it came through into the porch or something, so you kind of get it, right? You know what the diagram of the house is doing. And as it was built, well, you can see the clear store or the skylights running down the ridge. The bedrooms look like they're pretty conventional though, flat ceilings, trusses in there. But the rest seems to be sort of what you might expect of the period. And good God almighty.
What happened there?
All of them.
That's the same. feeling, yeah.
But the freshness of up-to-date traditional. She's fresh.
What did they just decide to randomly attach to the front there? They're just like, bloop, bloop. Just put that there. We're gonna give you
So
some
it
columns,
looks like a
because that's
bank.
clearly what you.
But it's
The landlord.
exactly the same floor, right? Same floor plan. Vastly different interior experience though, right? With a flat lid through the
Look
whole
at those.
house.
Look at those valances. That's that's Hollywood Regency at its best. Or worst.
There's that big wall of glass off the back. It's kind of just a blip without the volume. Again, kind of looks like the exact same plan from last year, but this time the kitchen is flipped. I'm sure this is somebody's product that they were doing for another client. I mean, we've seen this house built to death. But it's a very nice, modern house. So, and nice inside, right? And a kitchen, snack bar happening between it and the living space. It's nice. Entry court happening up there. I said, really beautiful.
Zodiac must be.
I like.
Is that what that was? That's right.
Like the abstract fish piece of court.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And smartness turned broadside. This is the same house, okay? They're stretching it a little bit here. It's the exact same house, even the windows are in the same spot, and everything. It's the same house. And had we just photographed it from the same angle, you'd see that the carports just turn, right? Same house. Turn broadside. Visit one of the 61 idea homes. Where are we at? Colorado. Pre-COVID. See it today. Tomorrow's idea is available now. Rapid list. So that's it as it got built here. An interesting point to make though. Furnished by May D&F. So this was, I would guess. Bob Bees would have had something to do with this. At May D&F at that.
No,
point.
he worked for Denver Dry. As built. Look at it completely open. And what it looks like today. '62. Very different look here to this copy. It reads very differently, a very complicated plan. It shows kind of to boil this stuff down. It essentially just shows a variety of sort of an expandable house. And for several variations of it. In elevation, kind of looks like the same things that Joe Eichler was doing out in San Francisco. With the pointed atrium. And it's really no surprise because these homes were designed by Chan Rader Associates of San Francisco. So they certainly would have been familiar with Eichler's building. Now you're at house E, it grew on one level. But it's getting bigger. Certainly, this is not the attainability that we saw in the early stuff. The decor is certainly changing too. Kitchens, right? Crazy wild colors because nothing else like that. Revolutionary is really happening here.
I do admit, I wish my kitchen
I
had
was gonna say.
where I
love
could actually
that.
go underneath.
I guess the fully lighted ceiling, yes. There's all the variety of models you can build. It's gonna build onto each other and get bigger and bigger and bigger. How much house can you afford? This doesn't show where these are all built. They are. But I suspect that they're not built in 100 cities this year. This one's in Florida. Right, so that was built there. Another ad, you know, but we're talking about from the sublime to the sublime.
Step ahead and shake.
One step. So this is one step ahead. I thought this was like 40 steps back.
Is that a log cabin?
So 1963. This is where we end up. This is the cover. A new planned service featuring improvement projects, family room, kitchen, carport, storage, landscape, and it's complete home. So we round full circle back to it essentially just being land sale. Like it was
40s, the very early 50s. Somewhat different from where we started. And you can see it's sort of a rehashed version of the 1961 house. It's the same language.
The most modern thing is the furniture.
So somewhat different. I gotta think, you know, when all of these programs were happening, it certainly was a different time to a certain extent. The early 50s to the early 60s, really. I mean, we're talking about 10 years here. And things did change rapidly. Of course, that's the Revere Ware program that Gene Sternberg was part of with his wonderful little house. But this shows a very different attitude, right? This is truly modern architecture for everybody, for regular people, you know, compact living. This was
Tiny house.
affordable. Beautiful stuff.
Did you see this
And when you
material?
look at
Get the
this
list of
program
15 cents.
dissolving, you look at some of the other ones, and they dissolved at about the same time too. Even John and Tenz's program for arts and architecture, he wrapped up in 1966. And he's quoted as saying, his homes also got pretty big in the later years. And he's quoted as saying, I don't need to do this anymore, right? We've kind of explored these ideas. Modern architecture is here. But was it? You know, production builders were working with these folks in all of these programs to build stuff that was forward thinking, was advanced. We can do anything. And it all kind of petered out, didn't it? So I think it's kind of it's a neat story. There's something neat here. All these builders trying to push this stuff through. Everybody kind of joining this cause to elevate and advance. Of course, all the while, you know, struggling to get loans on these kind of houses that have these little flat roofs, things like that. Builders associations were trying to get these things through.
And the banks were pulling them back.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think an interesting thing with this, Josh, is Better Homes and Gardens was marketed to women. And this idea of the galley and the kitchen goes back 100 years. So it's interesting how women are kind of centered in this whole project with the kitchen being in the center of the house. And it's a little like Ladies Home Journal at the beginning of the century with all the plans of Frank Lloyd Wright.
yes,
It's a specifically,
absolutely.
it's a
Absolutely.
specific woman's market that
Yes.
they're pushing with the family life and the children and being able to keep track of the kids and
I've got to think that this had a serious impact, right? That's a lot of homes that were built, a lot of homes all across the country.
Not including the plans that were sold and then more built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Built by them.
But you
Because,
don't know how they were modified.
Right.
you know, architects read arts and architecture,
right.
That's right.
and we've got to get clients, right?
The question is, like in other climates, did they build like the ones in Florida as block homes? That's my question, like on things like that, because
I don't think so. It maybe should have. But
I
I mean,
mean-
some of the ads that show them in Tampa, they look exactly the same.
I'd be curious, because like our house out there is 59 and is a full block. I mean, that thing, if a tornado would go through and the majority of that house would still be right where it was. So I'd be curious if they modified anything like that. Now I'm like gonna try and find if any of the Florida addresses around and see if I can figure out if they're blocked. I'm just curious
It's
if they would change that.
a big study. I mean.
I
don't
feel like
think
we need
any of
something
the
like
other
this
ones
again.
Were at this scale. I really don't. I don't think they were. And they had this particular program had a machine behind it that could afford to push this through, right? So
So
anyways.
is it just that as time went on, they realized that people were demanding more traditional styling, or did they just need steam, they also designers, did they?
Remember the banks?
The banks were the biggest.
Banks are pushing.
Struggle.
Okay.
what's a really neat comparison is studying this year for year and also looking at trade journals, builder trade journals of the same period and the stuff that they're talking about. Their developers, builders really were talking a lot and writing a lot about modern architecture. It made sense. It wasn't internal that was against modern architecture.
No.
To Mr. Gass's point, it's really
You know,
banks.
I went to a seminar, must have been in the 60s or 70s. And the guy was talking about the restraints on good design. He was coming from the financial world. And he had this picture of an architect and a banker sitting on a horse. The architect was pushing forward like this, and the banker was pushing backward like this. And it's always been true.
Yeah. Well, not to mention, of course, that none of those loans are given to people, anybody other than the white race
Yes,
or Christian white race.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, the 1950s, even beyond the banks, the biggest influence was the FHA and the VA.
yeah,
Yeah.
And they consistently would underappraise modern architecture.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, whereas builders really wanted to build modern architecture, every time they tried to do it, they couldn't get the financing because the FHA and the VA kept underappraising the homes they were building.
but one outstanding example for that is Iron Kips Bay Plaza, in which I worked, was built originally as a rental building and an urban renewal site, FHA standards. I'd say it's unique because it is. It's now a condo.
Yeah.
I designed all the kitchens and bathrooms. They have to be very rigorously designed FHA standards.
So
So in a way, I feel like it's a missed opportunity. Because, you know, I think one of the things that holds back design today, I mean, other than just banks, is the fact that people don't demand good design. And I think what Better Homes and Gardens was trying to do here in the mid-1950s was to teach people what good design looks like.
Yep.
And it very well could have influenced people to demand good design through this enormous program. But I think as builders tried to actually build these homes and kept meeting friction with the financing, that even if the people were demanding it,
Exactly.
they couldn't make it happen. So they had to go for traditional design just so they could make the financing work. And so it'd be great to have a program like this again today to try to teach people what good design looks like
Yeah.
and another way of thinking of building homes than what we're doing today, which is pretty sad.
Well, I think that's where like houses like mine came into existence, is because they're like, if we put this really traditional ranch and then the only thing we do is change the roof line and add a little extra glass, they'll approve it. And I think that was where like that mid-century modest, like the mid-century modern modest ranch came into existence. Like my house was the contemporary model in the neighborhood and they gave it a carport, so they made it different, whereas almost very few of the others had the carport. That one pretty much standard had the carport. And then like in Dream House Acres, not far from me, they also had their contemporary model, which is the same floor plan as the other houses in the neighborhood. It just has a modern looking front. And so that was the way they escaped the banks, because people were like, we want this house. And they're like, well, we can get you financed in this one. And I think that's what you see in a lot of the brochures, because the intelligence, and I'll talk about it again, like the intelligence is not there. That is just like the ranch floor plan as we started to see as you go into the 60s, which is when most of these were late 50s, early 60s, when that started to happen. And you just don't see that intelligence in floor plan. There's a lot of wasted space. It's got big hallways, things like that versus,
Yeah, look at that plan.
I know, there's,
And you wonder, like, how did things like Arapahoe Acres and Arapahoe Hills happen? And when you read into the story, what you learn is that, at least in the case of Arapahoe Acres, and I'm sure Manon probably carried it into Arapahoe Hills, they didn't deal with the FHA or BA. Hawkins financed all of the houses himself.
Oh,
And that was the only way he could make it happen. That's the only reason we have those wonderful groups of modern buildings, is because he didn't bother with the FHA or the BA.
I was gonna ask, I mean, clearly people were hiring architects, design custom homes. Which are whoever, and so were they self-financed, did they go to banks, did they, and how did they get those things?
Some of them, many of them went to banks.
Probably conventional financing, not government.
Yeah,
Oh,
backed.
just not,
they were not FHA loan,
okay,
because they were custom houses and they were all much larger, most of them over 2,000 square feet.
I would say though, a lot of the banks in Colorado and I know California, are some of the most modern buildings the city has.
Now,
No, there's a lot of 60s, like out in Aurora, there's some modern banks and.
Oh,
and
the
that-
banks themselves.
themselves are very modern. So
Those
it's
were
an
very
interesting-
modern. That's a
Yeah,
good
but
point.
is
it is
that
true.
They hired and built some of the most out there architecture, like, on South Broadway, that it almost looks like the Woody Allen House.
Same architect.
And then of course, the cash register building. The banks themselves really believed in modern architecture. Somebody, it's an
register.
interesting mentality.
Cash register is much later.
Much later, well, 70s,
But they had to look, like,
80s.
80s.
they had to look fresh. You don't want to put your
But I mean,
money
they
in
were
this
into
Greek
it, you know.
temple, but you
It's a
sure
weird
as hell
thing
can
to think
build,
about.
live in it.
Or like some of the banks were, some of the ones I see, I can't think of an example, but the ones that were round and raised up and they would be like glass and stuff.
Poured concrete, yeah, they did a lot of steel, concrete and glass.
I mean, even Deaton's bank here and then Deaton, the bank that he did in, what is it, Casper?
Yeah,
Also, you just wanted, you wonder if people just wanted a house that looked like the house they grew up in, and these did not look like that. So they kind of had to, and the pendulum went back to people wanted to live in something that looked like the neighborhood they grew up, that was more traditional. I don't know if it was all banks or taste, just people weren't, some
Well-
people were on the bandwagon and some people weren't on the bandwagon.
Of course. I will say though. And, you look at the period, look at what builders were building. Things would have been a lot different. If those projects would have gotten built. I think we'd be in a very different, architecturally, we'd be in a very different place. Had all of those communities been built and homes like this been able to be built on this.
Yeah, I mean, based on the media, obviously I wasn't there, but based on the media, the homes that were built, like the model homes and things like that, were wildly popular. People really wanted them.
And you think about the period when we could, the perception that we could do anything, right? Because we practically were. The future was just right around the corner. We were going to be there. These houses that we're building, we're gonna burn them down because we're gonna be living on a condo, ours. But, we're driving around in a car that you look at today and you think, my God, that got built. A bunch of executives sat around a table and said, yeah, we're gonna build that. This is great. It looks like a rocket ship, right? These this was not a period where we
Used
looked
his
back.
as a rocket ship.
If you kept your foot out of it.
But they're also, you know, and I've done a grand survey of all the modern homes in the city built in the fifties and sixties, particularly in the fifties. What you see, the city is littered with false starts. Where a builder started with a set of model homes that were modern and the rest were never built.
Yep.
And I have to think that's not because they weren't popular. I think it was because when they looked at the financial realities of making it happen in a time when almost everybody was getting VA loans in particular,
Well,
it just wasn't gonna work.
look at how long, according to our, based on our conjecture, that it took for Sunset Lanes to fill out. Right? 100 homes, this took 3 years.
Think about how long it took to build out of Arapahoe Hills, if you think about it. They
Yes,
got to build how many of the
Yeah, Arapahoe Acres and Arapahoe
10
Hills,
years,
took
right?
years and years.
years and years to build out, that's the part
I
that.
just did funny break.
Yeah.
You know, earlier, it's just the economy goes up and down and then and that was a concept. So one of the first concept subdivisions to make this look like a Tudor English village-ish sort of, and then that went up and down in terms of when how long it took to get built. And I imagine even Boquero looked a lot more modern than it does now, because there's an architectural committee that does what? I mean.
Oh, you have an architectural. committee?
Yeah, we do. I mean, it's just terrible,
Oh,
but it must have at one point looked pretty modern, doesn't it? It looks like a McMansion's area to some extent, except for a few streets.
But you even look at the more successful projects like the Cliff May home. There were 170 built, which is quite impressive for Burns to pull that off. But his original plan was to build 600 of them. So in that way, that was even a false start.
and how many of those across the country don't
And
have
then we
more
have
than
the
a few?
examples of
right?
of Linwood and Crescenta Park.
Yeah, Persona Park is interesting because it actually got
It
completed.
got, well, more or less. And-
Linwood, not so much. That
Well,
was,
Linwood was a little later and got stopped and Wolf ended up building on the other side of Evans, very conventional houses.
well, even in Linwood, there's one block in Linwood where right in the middle of the block, Wolf built 4 model homes of his early American line that he made an abrupt shift to.
Okay,
And the
Yeah.
remainder of Linwood was built out with those early American style.
yep.
Yeah, one of them's right next to one that I sold last year. It's like, and modern, and what happened, and modern, like,
In an abrupt shift in 1957. It's like he
about
hit a
right.
wall.
Well, I think that these are I'd like to, over the summer, visit some of these homes. Or certainly at least walk Arapahoe Hills with, a deeper understanding of where some of these much of that community comes from. So I'm looking forward to doing that, Bree. So thank you for your attention. And we'll dig into these more over the next coming months.
How much of this do you think has to do with the Highway Act and deterioration of the cities, people moving suburbs? Cheaper,
That all happened at the same time.
yeah, they've got cheaper mass produced houses over.
Yeah, there were larger.
So it was the 50s,